Chapter 3. The increasing noise of traffic on the roadway above the crash site as daylight broke over the PD river bottom made the big cat very nervous, and he left the body that had been feeding on without covering it with leaves. Slinking away until he was fully hidden by the heavy underbrush in the swamp bottom, the cougar headed for water and the shelter of the deep swamp. He would return at night to his kill when it was safer to do so. Now he needed water and rest. As early evening approached, the cat roused from his sleep and thought of only one thing: getting back to the kill and feeding. He had been interrupted on the last two kills that he'd made, and hunger was beginning to make him less cautious than usual. The cougar heard the sound of Tuck's truck stopping on the highway shoulder while he was still several hundred feet from the crash site, so he lowered himself to the ground and began to slink quietly toward the kill and the intruder that was working his way down the embankment. Something was wrong, and the cat knew it, but his hunger pressed him on to where there was a promise of food. When he knew that the interloper was on the kill site, the cat gave a low guttural growl instinctively, hoping to warn Tuck away. When that didn't work, he began moving in a circular stalk so that he could take Tuck from behind. But the small twig breaking underfoot changed his mind about attacking. He made a long bound back into the swamp, just as the flashlight beam found his position. In long, effortless strides, the cat covered up to 20 feet with each bound, putting distance quickly between him and the perceived threat from Tuck's light. He was angry now and ravenous. It was time to kill again. The smell was faint in the cougar's nostrils as a light breeze carried the promise of a meal to the big cat. He covered the distance quickly between him and a small flock of unsuspected goats corralled in an enclosure just outside of a small shed that sat behind an aging double-wide trailer. One old Nubian billy named Amos stood guard over the mixed flock that included 2 small milk goats, several white nannies, and a few small kids. The big cat seemed to fly into the enclosure by leaping effortlessly over the 6-foot fence, grabbed a screaming kid in its jaws, and jumped just as quickly and effortlessly over the opposite side of the corral. He silenced the small goat by breaking its neck with a powerful bite, then carrying the 30-pound animal in his powerful jaws, bounded into the woods to eat. The back door of the double-wide flew open as Millie Frakes ran out in her bathrobe, clutching an old side-by-side Ivor Johnson 12-gauge shotgun in her hands. The sounds of alarm coming from the pen had wakened her from a deep sleep, and the old woman rushed to fend off what she guessed to be coyotes that were after her precious goats. Millie's husband of nearly 40 years, Frank, had passed away 2 winters ago, and since the couple had no children, the pet goats were all of the family that the old woman had left. "What is it, Amos?" Millie called as she reached the pen, where the goats were milling around and bleating loudly. The one dim incandescent light illuminating the back of the barn cast long shadows that hid whatever was causing the ruckus. So Millie walked around the far side of the enclosure to see if she could spot that cussed coyote pack. "It's all right, Daisy," she called to one of the agitated milk goats. "I won't let you come to no harm." She had just stepped into the shadow behind the pen when the big male cat, driven by anger to attack this human intruder that represented what had driven him from his last kill, pounced with all of his 270 pounds of weight on her unsuspecting back, locking his teeth in the back of Millie's skull. Mercifully, the old woman never knew what had attacked her, and death was instantaneous. His attention now turned back to the goat pen, and the night of horror continued for the helpless goats as the cougar attacked indiscriminately to satisfy his lust for killing. He saved Amos for last, and stunned him with a swat from his paw that dazed the old goat, and then finished him by grabbing his throat in the powerful jaws and crushing his windpipe. Only after all the goats were dead did the cougar begin to feed, ripping several of the soft bellies open and eating the organ meat that it liked above everything else. Satiated, he jumped out of the pen and returned to his first kill. Taking the neck of the first kid in his mouth, the cat dragged him several hundred yards into the swamp bottom and buried him, under a pile of leaves and dirt at the base of an old windfall. With his hunger satisfied and his anger abated, the cougar found a live oak tree to pass the night in. In a deep sleep that comes with a full stomach, not even the sound of a coyote pack running in the distance troubled the dreams of the big cat.